So I am Demetrius Poet D Ford. Poet D is my AKA, and Poet D is collection. Poet D collection is my brand. I make custom made jewelry for men and women, beaded jewelry. My website is poetdcollection.com. I am also a author, poet, spoken word artist, recording artist, and I have a project that I've been rolling out titled Verbal Riffs. And I have a single out from the book Verbal Riffs, which is a book of poetry, and then it's also single music. Video is also being done. So it's titled Men of Steel. And Men of Steel is the first released from the book. And that's streaming on all digital platforms. You can see it right here on YouTube. Just type in Demetrius Ford, Men of Steel. You can also contact me and visit me on my IG, poetdcollection.com, Facebook, Demetrius Ford. And also, I am about to drop a deep lounge house single titled Getting It In over the weekend. So what I would like to do for you is a poem, Men of Steel, from the forthcoming book, poetry book, Verbal Riffs, from the entitled project, the total project, Verbal Riffs. Birth of life, heart beat of life, breath of life, living of life, human life. We all have a right to life. He stands before you, a Black man, expected to live up to the extremities of the civil rights leaders in their movement for the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and Civil Rights Act of 1968. Including the post-Civil War constitutional amendments, proving that within a race there are men of steel. He stands before you, a Black man, expected to understand the horrors of slavery and the shame of the Black man's unending pain. His history, his families, sold like cattle, mind, will, spirit, and self-worth, reduced to shackles and chains that were meant to disempower one's freedom of free will. History does disgust us, yet it lets us know of a time when the Willie Lynch papers and Jim Crow laws was an accepted lifestyle of oppression and control, a time of mental destruction and genocide on a race of people. This historical recap is not meant to rub in a white man's face of a horrendous time and hold him to crimes against the lives of the Black man's historical birthright. A time that did not inhale and exhale. The living breath of I look at it as a sign that says to us all, remember when this time could abruptly rise again, and it may not be in the color of Black or white skin. Famine and poverty based on your nation, not your ethnicity, your nation. Fear tenses the spine, but not those that march and stand in a protest line under the profound signs of no justice, no peace. He stands before you, a Black man, not made of steel, but made of substance, proving that he can withstand any inflicted and consistent racist pain so death parts his body and soul. The branding iron, meant to contain the fight in him, stripped, topless, and bottomless for all to see, the manifest destiny that would come to be. Human torture, castration, public and family humiliation, annihilation, a detest of his life, the horse-tail whip that ripped open skin that heals and conceals the truth about the Black man's still life force will. Keeping one's eyes on the prize was the focal point of Black lives that wanted a country to recognize that Black people matter and march for respect, social equality, politically for judicial fairness, and to be freed from racial mistreatment and violence. After all this time, revenge and cries of being a blaming repressed Black man is now on the masses of Black men's minds. However, the truth must stay alive, and the efforts of all for all who fought for freedom and equal rights cannot become unimportant history to a new generation. The young. Here they stand, young Black men, and the new millennium, and still blatant violent acts of racial prejudice and murder versus jail time is debated on how any one of them died of a variation in hate crimes. Here I stand, a Black man, in a new millennium where Black on Black crime is a statistical phrase and criminology on how we view our race, respect our race, live amongst others of our race, and its phrase comes under an outrageous scrutiny within our own race. Each Black male is a repeated reality of historical truth, yet and still there is a mixed race of young minds being bred on deception and guilt of what still exists. Taught to feel threatened and untrusting about the Black man as a human being. taught the American history of what it is to be feared about the black man who has always been viewed and treated as America's long-standing terrorist threat. So many variations of discussions about this time of the present where there is still an ongoing fight for civil rights. There will never be an overcome for those that practice or condone various forms of racial oppression and violent acts against the race of people for a continuing preservation for the existence of pure hate. I say racism, pure hate. In the 21st century of time, America's reasoning has been decades of perpetual divisive thinking. The black man, assumed angry at the world, hard and stern, his bound by steel armor is now birth grown. What is factual truth in the 21st century of time is that countries within nations will now come to realize the men of steel can really feel. Boom.
All right, bro. Talk that talk, yo.